Tonight's story is somewhat unique and calls for a different kind of introduction.
Who's gone off? Today we are canceling the apocalypse!
Wait a minute. You ain't heard nothing yet.
And this is?
Lilu Dallas Multipass.
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
Houston, we have a problem.
Have you tried turning it off and on again?
Gentlemen, you can't fight in here. This is the war room.
Now, where was I?
Welcome to episode 125 of the BlokeBusters podcast. I'm Paul, and today I've managed to wrangle on a night to finally come back on because, well, number one, because I thought he would absolutely love this film, but also because he is about to bring back his podcast in a slightly new light, and I figured it would be good to have him back on so that he actually, remembers how to do this stuff. How are you doing, Homer?
I'm doing very well. That's a great intro. Yes, I'm doing very well. And still alive for everybody out there in podcasting land.
Yes. Yes, and, a collective sigh of just, oh no, just rings around the world.
Well, that goes without saying, right? It's a general, oh no, whenever you mention my name or my podcast. So yes, yeah, we will be coming back on a slide. We'll talk about that later, but yes. But I'm here now to talk about all things this film.
Yes, and as you can tell from the title of this episode, we will be talking about Shadow in the Cloud today. So, first and foremost, going to get all of the annoying nitty-gritty stuff out of the way for this podcast. If you want to get a hold of us on anything that we've said, you can find us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram at BlokeBusters. You can go to BlokeBusters.com and check out the website. I think it looked fairly snazzy. Yes, I'm tooting my own horn there. And you can email us, theblokes@BlokeBusters.com, if you don't want to be limited to however many characters it is on Twitter these days. I've completely forgotten now. But anyway, after that, the nuts and bolts of this film are actually a little interesting. So, directed by Roseanne Liang, a budget of low. That is literally the only information I can find.
Yeah, we don't have a budget on this at all. I didn't have it. No.
It has not been released by anyone. The only thing that they will say is the budget is low. So there's that. And there actually is a box office for this film, despite the fact that it was only released.
What?
There is. It was only released for one weekend.
Yeah, one weekend people couldn't go to the fucking theater, Paul. Mm-hmm. Go ahead. What's the box office? Because I didn't even know this.
So worldwide, it has made $908,450.
All right, so nothing. Basically, it made nothing. Okay, so a couple Chinese people in Wuhan got to see it. Nobody here did.
Right. That's not true. It actually made $40,000 in the U.S.
What? Who rented this off Amazon? Because nobody went and saw it in the theater. All right.
Yep. I know. I was looking into that.
40,000.
Yep.
Guys, if you're one of the 40,000, please let us know who you are, because nobody saw this movie except us. All right, go ahead.
But yes. So, in the people that are actually in this thing, you've got Chloe Grace Moretz as Maud Garrett. You've got Taylor John Smith as Walter Quaid. You've got probably, I'm going to mispronounce this, but I'm going to give it a shot anyway, Buela Cole as Anton Williams. And you've also got Nick Robinson, Callan Mulvey, Benedict Wall, Joe...
Basically nobody, Paul. I don't know why you're reading these names off. Nobody knows
because
any of these
are the
people.
only people in the film. I'm going to read
Yeah, but nobody knows them. This Chloe Grace Moretz is the only name you had to read, and then go into the other stuff. But all right, there's other people in this too, folks. I think one guy was an Outlander, right? Am I correct on that, or no?
I think so.
I'm not. Yeah, okay. Then one. All right. So
I haven't watched it, so I can't give you a...
Yeah, that's for chicks. That's a chick show, but go ahead.
So yeah, I'm genuinely intrigued to hear your unfurnished opinion on this film, because, full disclosure for this one, I saw the trailer for this, and my initial reaction was, well, that film looks both stupid and entertaining, I'm in. So...
I think that's it. I don't know where else you're going to go with it. Entertaining is a bit of a stretch. It is, boy, it's dumb. It's really dumb. It's also cribbed from a lot of other stuff. Basically, it's a Twilight Zone episode extended out to an hour and 23 minutes. And the problem is, when you can't get a film to 90 minutes, That's a problem, I guess. In the first, just in the overview of the thing, it's only 123 minutes. So basically, well, there you go. And there's a lot of tonal shifts, but it's basically a Twilight Zone episode. And we'll get into it, but that was my overall reaction. I mean, I guess it's an hour and 23-minute Twilight Zone episode. That's not as good as the other 2 Twilight episodes that were based on this film, right? All right.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the entire premise of this film being that Gremlins... Yeah,
let them know the premise, because people are like, what's the Twilight Zone?
Yeah, so the premise of this film is, well, it's supposedly, when you start the film, it's about Maud Garrett, and she is on this bomber trying to get away, and she is responsible for this package.
World War II.
Yes, World War II, and she's flying from New Zealand,
right,
to Samoa, is apparently where it's going. I did have to look that up. Because,
I had to look at, I didn't know where they were going either, but all right.
But yeah, so she is in charge of this package, and she gets stuck down into the Sperry, which is a turret that was on the other side of airplanes back then, and then it goes from, okay, what exactly is going on here, to, oh, by the way, gremlins are real.
Well, yeah, that's established really early on, but yeah. Well, but we should say it's prefaced by a cartoon showing gremlins. Like, there's a World War II cartoon about gremlins. And gremlins were just, that was just a term that the naval forces or armed forces used for shit getting fucked up on planes and stuff like that. When stuff would go wrong, they would blame it on gremlins. Not actual fucking gremlins from 1984 Spielberg production, but, you know, that it was just a term they used. But here, it's an actual gremlin.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, gremlins, when it came down to it, pretty much any time that there was a malfunction in the aircraft or anything else, like, it was said to be gremlins, and then whenever they were actually depicted in any sort of cartoon from back then, or a lot of propaganda from back then, they looked like these weird, generally white, actually, just these weird sort of pasty white animals with, like, large eyes, clawed things with sharp teeth. Like, it was just very odd. And I will say, jumping ahead to when we actually, like, properly see this thing.
Oh my God.
This is probably my least favorite look for a gremlin.
It's because it doesn't look like a gremlin, Paul. It looks like it's a fucking bat. It's a bat with arms. We'll talk about that when we get to it. But spoilers, guys. I'm sorry, I don't mean to jump ahead here, but it's not the Gremlins from the 1984 Gremlins or the sequel Gremlins 2, the new batch, which they are, or the Twilight Zone episode in the 60s Gremlins, or the Twilight Zone movie Gremlin. Right? There's a lot of Gremlins here, Paul. Break it down. There's a lot of gremlins going on here.
Well, no, I was actually, that was one thing that I had down to ask you. So,
please.
And you've kind of already touched on the different thing. But, so when it comes to gremlin being portrayed in either cinema or TV, like, what is the first one that pops into your head when you hear Gremlin? Now, obviously, Gizmo from Gremlins is what people think, but he's not a gremlin. He's a
go with that. But I'm still going with that. 1984 Gremlins, the Chris Wallace makeup and the puppetry. That's the Gremlins I go to. If you say Gremlins, that's what I'm going to go to. Okay. Because that was, I think, the best depiction of a gremlin in terms of in the coinage name. Because in the 60s Twilight Zone, it was a midget in a fucking gorilla suit, right? And then in the 1983 or 4, I forget what the John Landis crap, the Twilight Zone movie, which was he didn't direct that episode. Who directed? Joe Dante? Was it Dante? No, it wasn't Dante. Who directed that episode, Paul?
You know,
with John Lithgow. I don't remember who the fuck. George Miller, right? Was it George Miller?
I think it was George
Miller. That gremlin was actually a better look. That was actually the most evil looking, probably the most accurate representation of a gremlin. If you have to imagine one being just tearing up shit. Okay, so I will go with that one. The first one, the William Shatner was a midget in a gorilla suit. The second one was an actual fucking scary ass gremlin in 83 or 4. I don't know when that film came out. I really should have known that. And then of course, but if you just say gremlins to the common audiences, everybody's going to go to the 1984 the movie, the Spielberg produced film with Chris Columbus. That Gremlin, not Gizmo, because that's pre-Gremlin, but we're talking like Spike, right? Am I correct on this? And the sequel later on, a couple years later.
Yeah, because I would say I listed down the sort of 3 most iconic ones to me when I was trying to think of them. So the first one is Stripe from the first Gremlin. Like
that's a Gremlin. That's a proper Gremlin. He was fucking evil.
That's probably like the most iconic looking one.
Well, yeah, because they were smart enough to put a fucking white mohawk on him. But go ahead.
And then the second one I actually put down is probably not the most popular one from the film, but Brain Gremlin. I actually like from the second one.
The actual Tony Randall? Yeah, man, you're really nobody. I wish more people saw that second movie because that's almost a better film than the first one. I actually like that better than the first one, but that's a deep cut. I don't know if we're getting into the Gremlins 2, the new batch. Tony Randall, great performance by him. But you're right, you are correct on it. What's your third? What's the third?
It is from. It's the Something on the Wing from the movie, not the TV show, because like
the movie's a scary fucking gremlin. That one was because John Lithgow lost his shit, and honest, that's a performance-based piece. We all know John Lithgow. That's probably, if you say John Lithgow, that's one of his best performances. I don't know how many people are going to argue with me or agree with me on that, but he lost his shit in that film, and because he lost his shit, we lost our shit watching that. That's probably the best of the 4 episodes in that. That is probably easily the best sequence in the movie. That's a horrifying sequence, and that gremlin on that wing is fucking terrifying.
Yeah, it's just such a phenomenal, retelling of that.
Oh, it's a great retelling. I think it's George Miller. I think I'm correct. The guy who did Mad Max. I believe it. Yeah, am I correct on this?
Yeah, George Miller directed it.
But kids, none of these gremlins didn't even come close to this dumbass gremlin in this movie, okay? So we did, again, all these gremlins we just mentioned are all practical or a midget in a suit. The gremlin in this movie is completely CGI. Am I correct on this?
Yeah.
And again, we completely lose anything, and we talked about, well, good. I don't want to get into a whole dissertation on your show about how CGI is bullshit, but when you don't have practical effects, and we talked about this, it's just, there's no investment in the audience to believe in it.
Yeah.
Right? Am I right?
Yeah, I mean, I genuinely thought there were a few bits, especially when it was further away or obscured by clouds and things like that, where it was like, okay, it could work. Like, it really could work. And I genuinely did think that they would try and go through most of the film. I figured they wouldn't do it through all of the film because, and this is something I will touch on in a moment, the trailer gives it away. But
I never saw the trailer, so you're right.
But yeah, I thought they were going to keep the gremlin mostly hidden in such a way that you weren't sure if it was actually there or not. And
I wish they did.
Yeah, about 2 minutes after the first maybe sighting of the gremlin, you see it in all its, in quotation marks, glory.
And to be fair, he looked like a puppet. And I thought, oh, that's a really shitty puppet from like a Roger Corman film. But then as the film went on, he became, oh, no, it's not a puppet at all. It's just a CGI thing that they fucking came up with for the rest of the film. Yeah, it's incredibly. And it's also just a gremlin, Paul. You're right. There's no mystique about this. There's no horror film element where you keep it in shadows like Alien. And then is it real? Is it not real? There's not. No, there's a gremlin, folks, and it looks like a really sad bat, and we're gonna have to deal with this thing for the whole movie, basically. But you know, in terms of all this other nonsense going on, but there's other stuff going on. Go ahead, Paul. You can break that down, but.
Well, I was going to say, and as I said, when it comes to the trailer, I fully understand why they put the bits in the trailer that they did. Because obviously when you're trying to sort of sell what this film is, especially since it's almost trying to be a camp film a little bit. Like it's trying to be that sort of campy action adventure horror thing. But, and so what they've done with the trailer is they put, and obviously spoilers at this point, so they put a second long shot of Chloe Grace Moretz punching the gremlin
Oh, that's
in the
at the end,
water
the back end
at
of
the
the movie,
end.
yeah. What the,
And then
that's in the trailer?
That's in the trailer.
Oh,
when
they
she
give away the whole movie at that point.
when she
right?
falls out of the plane and gets blown back into
Oh,
it.
well, we're not going to talk. Well, I guess we will address that when we get to it. But that, God, really, that's in the trailer.
That's in the trailer.
Oh man.
And then I don't think they had her hanging on the underside of it, but that's
That's a whole. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Look, if you're gonna do a film about gremlins, it better be unique and to the because we've already seen this material. The problem is it's a really hard sell, Paul. Wouldn't you agree? We've already seen for anybody. The original Twilight Zone episode, and I forget who directed that, by the way. With William Shatner, he was the guy who being tortured in that one. The Twilight Zone movie remake, the fucking 84 Gremlins, and then the 80, I think it was 88. I think the sequel with the Tony Randall sequel, Gremlins.
1990.
Really, was it that late?
Yep.
Gremlins 2 was that late? Oh
yeah.
God, really?
Yeah,
7 years after? Holy shit!
Yeah,
okay,
and the entire point of the film
Jesus
as
fuck.
well, they've gone on record as saying the whole point of the film is it's making fun of the fact that films get sequels. So
And it does a brilliant. Actually, that's why I say that's a better film than the first one. But okay, we can debate that endlessly on that one because Gremlins 2 is amazing. It's an amazing piece of work in terms of just puppetry and execution. But good.
Yeah, and I was going to say in answer to your question about the Twilight Zone episode from the TV show, was directed by Richard Donner.
Thank you. Oh, that was Donner?
Yep.
Fuck! Why are we even talking about this shitty film? And we get to be talking about Richard Donner. It's awesome. I didn't know that was Richard Donner. Okay, so there you go, folks. If you have not seen it, this is on, I believe, CBS All Access, which now has become Paramount Plus. So I think they have all the seasons of Twilight Zone on that site. So if you subscribe to that channel, please go watch that episode because it's William Shatner. It's one of his better performances, right?
Yeah.
And the gremlin is like, granted, it's a midget in a weird suit. I'm not going to get into that. And it's not as terrifying as the 84 version with John Lithgow. That's the better version. I will say, of the 4 episodes in that one. And the problem is that film is problematic because John Landis basically killed a bunch of people and has never been prosecuted for it. But that's a separate show. But that was the first thing. But that whole film got tanked because of that. But if you guys can watch it, please watch that 4th episode with John Lithgow because he is absolutely fantastic. That's one of his best performances. And the gremlin in that is fucking terrifying. More terrifying than the CGI fuck in this movie. All right, there you go. Nice setup for the whole rest of this episode. But would you agree, though? Like, at least it's an agreeable...
Yeah,
thing. I mean, it's a hard... I know, CGI is such a tough animal now because we've seen it all, right, Paul? I mean, this is...
Yeah, and they obviously were at certain points. They were obviously trying to be like, okay, this is going to be the sort of big reveal shot, but then it goes back to not really being seen that much.
But they reveal him early, though.
They do.
He's revealed very early when she's down in that Sperry. Like, I guess if you want to back up the plot, she has a fucking case of dumb shit, and she has to get on this plane. And she's on this bomber, and they don't like her because she's a woman, and she ends up they lock her down in the Spirit. We just dissect the plot. But when they revealed I actually thought, honestly, I did think it was a puppet initially. And I thought, okay, that's kind of cool. I mean, it's cheap looking, but it was cool. But then as the film went on, I realized that, no, it's not. It's that they just went full CGI in this one. Lazy.
Yeah, and yeah, for anyone actually looking for the plot, I gave up actually trying to explain the plot of these.
Break it down how she ends up on the plane. I mean, she's just a woman that has to. She's an Air Force officer, right? An RAF officer. Right?
Yeah, she. I mean, obviously, it's a turning point in the film when you realize that. Oh wait, she's not. But yeah, she passes herself off as an RAF.
Right. To get on this bomber jet that's doing a mission to somewhere.
Yeah.
It leaves New Zealand, right, to go to Samoa, right? It's just and they have a bunch of racist, not racist, they have a misogynistic fucking, because apparently in World War II, every guy was a dick to women, except one, right? As we find out on this plane. I don't know. I'd have to ask people who lived during that time if all guys were like this. I don't think they were, but
I would like to think that the majority of them weren't really like that, but I'm sure because obviously back then would have been just a boys' club. So yeah.
Yeah, but a lot of this film is, and what's the message of the film, Paul? It's not about a gremlin on the plane. It's about women's rights and being misogynistic towards men, because isn't she trapped in the spirit and that's a metaphor for being trapped as a woman, not getting the accolades for. We can get into there's a whole nother conversation about this, but there's a very I guess it's a woman that directed it, not to she, and honestly it's well shot and the DP is great and it looks great, but the problem is the message is so heavy-handed on this. It distracts from the other bullshit that's going on, and then it at the back end of the film becomes an action film. I mean, there's so tonally, it's way off on a lot of this stuff, and that was the issue I had. It was never one thing, and I just wish it had one through line through that. Look, we know men are dicks, we get that, but the problem is for 40 minutes, Paul? There's like 40 minutes that it's just constant abuse against this woman who's trapped in a spirit. There's constant abuse, telling her how much she's a dick and all this other. I mean, it goes on and on and on and on.
Yeah,
and that was the issue I have. It distracted from the action adventure part. It distracted from that stupid CGI gremlin. I mean, we had to wade through a lot just to even get to anything meaningful, right? Am I correct on this thing?
No, yeah, and I would say, and I want to jump back to a question that I have in a minute, but yeah, as you say, the solid 40 minutes or so of just derogatory language.
Man, it's 40 minutes. It's literally a very long time.
Yeah, and it's something where I was like, I was okay with it being in the film because of what they were trying to do with it. And then after about 20 minutes, you reach the point where it's like, okay, can we get on to either something else, or can we do something that shuts them up just for a bit? Because I obviously hate some of these characters, and you probably noticed as well that the people that are primarily really spouting all of that stuff are the ones that end up getting killed.
Well, that's a no-brainer right there. But it's obviously the director has an axe to grind on some level, and an axe to grind and saying just she has to address this. But it's so overt and obvious, and we've seen other films that just have to deal with this in a completely different manner. I just wish it would have just been one thing about some action adventure having to do with gremlins, and just happens to be a woman, and we don't have to berate her for 40 minutes. Because you're right, Paul. After and look at me, I do a show flushing crappy films or collecting about I deal with this and I do a lot of humor about this. But even me, after about 20 minutes of these guys fucking just constantly going after, even I was like, look, let it up for air. We get it. We know what you're saying. We understand the time we're living in the 1940s. And it wasn't I refuse to believe it was exactly like this, or even, I understand that this happened and it existed. I understand the time frame, but god damn it. Why do we have to watch, 30, 40 minutes of this woman getting heckled constantly? It's brutal.
Yeah.
And especially in the age we're living in right now. This film's released right now. We're talking Breonna Taylor. We're talking just the age we're living in. We already know this shit's going on. Why do we have to watch a movie with it? The movie's escapism. In case you guys didn't fucking know, we watch these films to get away from the shit we're dealing with in real life. So this film just reminds us of how shitty real life is, right? Am I wrong on this?
Well, I mean,
it's brutal. Even I have a tolerance for this. I'm all about the humor. But go on.
Well, I would say as well, based on your saying, I mean, obviously. Yeah, for the most part, films have definitely been predominantly escapism and all that. But however, I will say that some films are made when it comes to actually trying to get a message across. And something I actually read from the director kind of rings true a little bit, which is that she wasn't making this film in an attempt to say, look, all men do this, or blah, blah, blah. All of the things that she has been accused of doing with this and all that. But, she was just making a film from her standpoint, from her experience. And I think that part of
but
what
it's
that
saying
might
that did
be...
she do it? I mean...
Well, that's the thing. Part of it could be that, obviously, it might be super uncomfortable for us to listen to, but I genuinely think that part of it is just like, oh, it's super uncomfortable for you to listen to, is it? Like, this is the stuff we get. Like, I'm actually genuinely, like, I'm not scared. I'm not necessarily, like, worried about my daughter when she grows up. However, I am fully expecting that she will run into this sort of dialogue at some point from someone, and, like, it's not going away. So I kind of appreciated that the film seemed to be sort of trying to shine a spotlight on it. The problem is, as I said, it stays on there for too long. It really could have just turned away to something else.
All right, you make some great points, and yes, because you have a daughter, you're invested in this world, and your daughter will have to deal with this. I'm telling you, it's not even a fact, Paul. She's gonna deal with it, and younger than you would think, she's gonna have to fucking deal with this.
Yeah,
and that sucks. Okay, I will say that. I can't even make a joke about it. It's just that's the reality we're living in, and it sucks. But to have this hammered over your head for this long, and it's literally, guys, we're talking, it has to be the first 30 minutes of film. Like, right, they go on and on and on and on about this, and it'd be okay if we weren't already inundated with all this shit on Twitter and social media and everything else. Like, we're already well aware that guys suck, or just like a society sucks in that sense. I shouldn't even say, because women suck too. I don't want to level it just the guys, but this is really, anti-guy in that sense. And the 1940s were a different time, so it's kind of it's a hard animal to deal with. I know she set this in the 40s to offset the fact that we don't have this problem now, but we do have this problem now. But to kind of just soften it up. But I don't know if she really achieved her goal in this one. But it's brutal. It's really brutal, even from even women's. I think guys or women. I think it's really hard to get through the first 40 minutes of this film before it really kicks into something else. And it really doesn't really kick into something else, Paul. It really continues that same thing. Our women are shit for most of the movie until the back 10 minutes where she has to punch a CGI creature repeatedly. And that's where it gets dumb, because it's not even realistic. That it gets to the point where it's not realistic, and then women lose credibility there. So I think there's other stuff. I don't understand what what's her name, Lang? What's her first name?
Roseanne,
yeah. Is this her first film or no?
I'm not 100% sure on that.
All right,
Give me a second.
Good research on that. Good research on that, Paul. Paul's on the pulse of this movie, right? Yeah, I think she's done other stuff. I don't know what the.
She's done a couple of other films, but this is probably.
So we should say it's not a man-hating film. I'm not going to say that, but I think she's trying to drive a point home, and I think she does it to her deficit early on in the movie, and I think that really hurts the rest of the movie.
All right, well, obviously we've been talking about the stuff that you're not so much a fan of, so I really want to kind of shift gears a little bit here and say, what can you tell me that you really enjoyed about this film?
Oof, good thing I'm drunk. I will say it is well shot. I think the director the DP, I should say, did a pretty good job at between the airplane sequences and then later on the ground sequence. I think the film is aesthetically okay.
Right.
I like Chloe Grace Moretz as an actress. I wish she had been given a little bit better material here. I think her downshift into a action hero, the whole film, but really at the back end is a little disingenuous to the movie. So I don't know if it was the best cast for this role. All the male actors suck. I can't. There's not one I can recommend because they were just so offensive and so just generic. Even though there was one from fucking Outlander. And if you're an Outlander fan, don't fucking tweet at us. We know you're a rabid fan of Outlander. Just bear with us. But, the male actors were most of them get killed anyway throughout the film. But we should mention that, I guess. Most of them end up in various forms. She survives where honestly, she should have been dead a long time before this movie ends up where it ends up, which is in a bizarre place. But I like how it was shot. I like Chloe Grace Moretz as a general actress. If you haven't seen her Kick-Ass, folks, I'm sure most of you have by now. Please go back and watch her performance in that. It was one of her best performances. And she's done a couple other roles I think that have been pretty good. But she's never hit the superstardom she really needs to, and she's been starring in bullshit like this. And I don't know why. What's the problem, or what's the crossover, Paul? What do you think of the crossover for Miss Moritz? Because she shows up and shit, but she's never hit that Sharon Stone, Glenn Close type of fame.
Yeah, I get the feeling.
I don't know.
I get the feeling she's going to be kind of like the next Elliot Page, just because, she's been in several things and she's been good in those things. Off.
She's very good,
but she hasn't hit that one role that's going to push it.
Maybe it's a Marvel film, Paul. Maybe she's got to get in the DCU or the Marvel. I don't know what it's going to take for her to look. She's incredibly talented, folks. If you have not seen Kick-Ass, please go watch that. If you're not seeing, I'm going to say Let the Right One In. I don't really agree with that. I think no. What's the original one, Paul? There's two names for this. There's Let the Right One In. There's Let Me In. Let Me In. She was in that. And she's good in that. I would say, honestly, folks, just watch Let the Right One In, which is a Danish film, I think, which is amazing.
Yeah. I think I know which role would be perfect for her in the MCU.
What do you got?
If we were getting that one, then she is pretty much perfect to play Squirrel Girl. And
interesting choice.
And I know that most people listening to this that aren't fans of the comics will go, what the fuck? But yeah, no, it's just quite genuinely, Squirrel Girl is the only person who was able to, by herself, defeat Thanos.
Oh, there you go.
So,
all right,
so yes, it's like, and she's kind of it's almost kind of a joke character, but she's genuinely like treated as just this actually kind of powerful character, and I think that Chloe Grace Moretz would be a good fit for that. But
I think she has that. I wish she would just do, I don't know if you ever if you've seen Kick-Ass. There's a moment in Kick-Ass where before the final sequence where she has to go kill a bunch of guys, where it's her on camera and Matthew Vaughn does a close up of her, and you actually see her change character, and that's a rare thing for a young actress to do. She goes from being like an innocent young girl to a killer, basically. And it's that moment that I thought, and if you have not seen that, you should go back and watch it, that really sold me with her and her performance and what she's capable of doing as an actress. And then she goes through that sequence. That's the sequence at the end, Paul, where she on the bookcases and she kills her. Yeah. But right before that, you see her duck down, and you see that look on her face, and she literally changes character at that point. And that's a very hard thing for any actress to do, or any actor. And that's what sold me on her as an actress. And I thought she was going to go on to do great things. But here we are, doing this fucking movie, which means nothing. And then in all these other films she's done, I just wish she would hit the type of stardom I think she deserves. So I'm with you on that, Paul. And in terms of, and like I said, she's not bad here in some sense. But character-wise, a lot of this doesn't make sense. She first of all, she would have been dead 10 times over and trapped in a spirit. And then second of all, there's no way she's gonna be punching a CGI bat at the back end of this movie. It's just a very hard sell.
Yeah. Now, I will say that this film has some characters, especially Chloe Grace Moretz, have some of the thickest plot armor I've ever seen in any film. But I'm including Sylvester Stallone and Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Oh no! Don't get crazy. Don't go. Yeah, she does survive. Well, she's on the underside of the plane, which obviously would have killed her. But
that's actually I was gonna say one of my favorite things in the entire film is when she is hanging on the underside of the plane.
Oh,
not because Bullshit. I was thinking that would be possible, because it's not. Because of any particular I want to see the character succeed, because I knew she would. We're only halfway through the film, or just over halfway at this point, I guess. But because, as we talked before, the DP shot it fantastically, especially the decision to just turn the camera over so that we were seeing it from the other perspective.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. Yes, that was fine.
Really well done. And then my other favorite thing in the film, which just kind of sold the scene for me, especially since it felt like a B-movie campy moment, is when that synth soundtrack came in. and it was just like, okay, we know what we're doing here. This is just this is
I
just
agree
fun.
with you on that. I wish it was more fun. I think it's that sequence that is fun. And yes, I agree with you. The synth pop soundtrack, I think, is okay, but honestly, it's oddly separate from the 1940s sequence. It's a weird thing and weird mesh to do. And you have to. I think if we're gonna go all in on this, you should have went all in from the beginning. And I think really the first 30 minutes really hurts the film with having a bunch of guys berate a woman in that because you kind of lose a lot of the audience, I think, in that sequence. So when you get to the fun stuff like this sequence, and then later on where she's punching a bat in the face, you're kind of out of it at that point. I don't know if it really carries over into the back end of the movie. For a movie that's barely 90 minutes, I mean, it's kind of a weird thing. Like it's like the director wanted to front load her political opinions and all that shit early on, and then want to have a fun movie at the back end, but you can't. It's hard. That's a hard thing to sell, man.
No?
It's a hard thing to sell.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And one thing I wanted to get your overall opinion on the bit when, and obviously the end of the insanely campy bit is when she is blown back into the airplane from an explosion.
Paul, that's where you're on it. It's the jump the shark moment.
Yeah,
Paul.
yeah, absolutely.
That's what completely disintegrates the rest of the film. Is that moment? You can't do that. Everything else was okay. Like we can kind of okay it, but when you do that bullshit where she falls out of the plane and then a Japanese bomber explodes and blows her up back into the plane. I mean, come on, man. Even even I was the guy who believed that Bruce Willis survived that grenade fight in Die Hard 2, Die Harder, where he ejected himself out of a plane. I was willing to believe that. Here, I'm a lot less willing to believe that bullshit. She would have been killed. First of all, she just would have kept falling. Yeah. First of all, in case you guys notice, if an explosion goes off, you're not blown back into something. It doesn't work like that. The fire just goes around you, and you burn to death and die. Okay, so yeah, that was a hard sell, Paul. It's a real. If it was a Tarantino film or a Rodriguez film. Maybe. Yeah. I think there's context that has to go on here. But the problem is you're surrounding it with not the proper context. She just did this one moment, but you need the whole film to surround that.
Yeah.
See what I'm saying?
And that's the thing. Like I didn't even necessarily buy it in the continuity of the film. It was just like I was able to chalk it up, like personally just watching. I was able to chalk it up to like, okay, that looked cool. I know it wouldn't have to happen.
No, it doesn't. No, I was laughing my ass off. It doesn't look cool. It's bullshit.
No. As in, like, it's supposed to be a trailer moment, and it is a fucking trailer moment.
You're right. Okay, I agree with that. But in context of the rest of the film, it doesn't sell because the rest of the film is not like that moment.
I know, absolutely. And then
that's the problem.
And then the bit that I kind of want to get your opinion on is from the moment she's back in that plane. Until about 5 minutes later, we quickly dispatch, I think it's 4 of the remaining people. And I wanted to know what your thoughts on that were, because I really enjoyed the fact that we didn't get a single drawn out death scene in this film. They were gone. And
that makes sense for the type of material you're doing. There's also a lot of preamble before you get to that. So that when you finally get to that moment, these guys who've been rating this poor woman for 30 to 40 minutes of screen time finally get their comeuppance, and they get it real fucking quick. I didn't have an issue with that. That was okay because you're kind of moving the plot along, and you're kind of accelerating the events that are happening. So that's okay. That wasn't the issue. I had an issue with her being trapped in the Sperry and we're not seeing the other people. Because for a good 30 minutes we're just focused. It's just her and the Sperry, and I wish they had cut. We hear these other assholes on the audio. I wish they had cut back to the actual characters and kind of developed them a little bit more. Yeah, before they died. So I think their deaths would have been more meaningful. But that was the other issue. Is like she's down there, then we're up here, and then they all get killed.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're seeing the whole film from her point of view, so she's not up there with them, so we don't get to see it. However, my one annoying thing about this film from that perspective is that we barely see all the other characters before she goes
Right.
into the spare room, before
That's
they're
the
just
problem.
voices. And
Yeah.
I didn't like listening to the radio, with the exception of I think it's Taggart, who is obviously Scottish. With the exception of him, there is not really any big difference between any of the other voices. They all just kind of meld together, just in the on the radio as they go, especially when they all start yelling and arguing and stuff like that. Like, you really can't tell who's who.
No.
And I guess back then that kind of would have been the case. But yeah, we as an audience find it very difficult to know what's going on if we don't know who the hell's talking.
Yeah. No, there's 20, 30 minutes of that before we even get to... Yeah, and then we see them. They visually show them, but we don't have enough... because the next 20, 30 minutes happen, and we don't have any context at that point. And we have to listen. I get that. I wish if the whole film was like that. But we've seen, like, other films that have been like that. Like, Ryan Reynolds and Buried. I mean, there's a lot of these isolated type of movies. This doesn't work in that level because there's other stuff going on, and she gets out of there, and then there's a gremlin, and there's assholes. So yeah, I wish it was a little bit more where we understood those guys from the top side, or just cut away. I don't understand why she made that choice.
Yeah, I feel like it genuinely was just a choice of, well, the entire film we are only seeing what Maud is either seeing or envisioning. So like that's obviously the choice for the film, and it's just, as someone that I personally, if I meet someone for 30 seconds and then I talk to them later, I don't remember what they look like. I might have forgotten their names. Like, right. I struggle so much with that. So the fact that we barely even got that before she had to go into the Sperry, I struggled with it because I struggled with that anyway. So, maybe someone that really enjoys these sorts of films who sat down to watch it, maybe that wouldn't be an issue for them. But unfortunately, it was for me. Now, all right. So when it comes to the ending, I kind of agree with you that obviously they wanted to give her the big defeating the monster ending, and
that didn't need to be, because she defeated a monster in the air when she shot this fucking thing, and then we have to have another extended action scene on the ground with her finishing the job. First of all, that gremlin would not have survived the fall, but we can argue that this bat gremlin, we should say. I wish it was just a better looking gremlin. I think it's terrible looking CGI creature. It was lazy. I think it was a lot of laziness. But then she ends up beating the shit out of this guy on the ground, and there was reviews I read that were, she's a total badass. I'm like, well, where are we going with this? I mean, it doesn't logically make sense, even for the character I don't think she would have done that. I don't think she would have went after him and killed him, even though the thing tried to kill her baby. We should mention that in the package she has a child from one of the guys who she was fucking on the plane, which is a whole separate thing. But it's a weird ending. It's a really, really strange ending, and I don't know if it works. I don't. It seems a downshift at that point from anything that Lang tried to do earlier on.
Yeah, I do think that, with the exception of the fact that they clearly wanted, Maud defeating the bad thing, other than just shooting it in the air. Obviously she did defeat it, and if you were to follow, logic, then it would be dead and you wouldn't have to deal with it. But they wanted the obvious on-screen, like Ripley going after the alien or stuff like that.
It's a weird ending. It's just such a weird.
Yeah.
Because we didn't need that. I thought the film was over. Then she starts punching this guy. I'm like, oh man.
But that's the thing. If you did cut that out entirely, but left the bit
the
before
film's
it
less
and
than
the bit
80
after
minutes,
it, then it fits together seamlessly. So it's.
Yeah, you're right.
It's kind of pointless there, but I actually was kind of thinking about something as we were talking, and I wonder what your take on it would be. It would be sort of a different visual style, but how films from back then, or like whenever you do flashbacks to back then or things like that, like there's always that weird film grain that you get visual over it.
Yeah.
Like, what do you think it would have been like if every time we saw Maud like interacting with any of the other men, it kind of had that film grainy thing, but then the second she goes in the Sperry, that goes away. So like, and because I kind of feel like she's quite clearly, you know, a strong, independent woman, and is like she doesn't fit into what might have been expected of a 1940s housewife, which she was before she joined up.
Yeah.
And like, I kind of feel that the film was trying to be like, you know, this is the soldiers and what they talk about. This is her. And I feel like it would have been an interesting way of sort of showing the two different things. Like, you know, she's obviously fitting into their world when she's kind of talking with them, and then obviously fighting against it. And then, you know, having that gone. Like, I feel like that would have been interesting to do. However, I do not, own a copy of this film to be able to edit it myself, and B, have the time to do that. So.
No. Well, yeah, the film's barely 90 minutes. There's a lot of other ways you could have gone with it. I think if she was more one of the guys, I think they've adopted her as more one of the guys. I think that might have been a more interesting film, which would have went against type, I guess, for the type of. But yeah, we didn't get that either. So I mean, yeah, there's a couple different ways we could have went with it.
I feel like, and I wish I could remember. I think it's Tommy.
Because you got to remember. Well, she knows what she's talking about. The problem is they keep berating her because she doesn't know what she's talking about. But the bitch knows what she's talking about, and the problem is we have to spend an inordinate amount of time arguing that.
Yeah.
So there's like a ton of screen time saying you're full of shit, and she's saying no, I'm right, and she's right. But but there's like that, and that's really in the first 40 minutes of the film. So the back end of the movies, they still don't even get on her side. It really isn't until the very end where she's punching some CGI bat in the face, you know, in some fucking lagoon, that they finally were like, oh, she's serious. But why do we have to wait almost 90 minutes for that? Like, why couldn't we get on board a lot earlier that she knows what the fuck she's talking about? And this is not. I don't know why we cited the 1940s, because I'm sure there was a lot of women in the 1940s where men respected them. I mean, not all of them, but I'm sure there was men who was like, well, we're gonna follow her because she knows what the fuck she's talking about, in the armed services or not. So that was my issue with it. Why couldn't we gone in that direction and made it just a fun B movie about fighting a bat gremlin? And then having to do with the Japanese invasion. There's other stuff going on here.
I don't know. It's an interesting film. I do think, as we said, I feel like, and it's interesting because it is only 83 minutes, I feel like they tried to do too much in the span of the film. And if they'd focused more on just one or two aspects, that it would have been kind of a better all-around film. Now, I freely admit that despite having to get through the dialogue, like, outside that, like, I actually did genuinely enjoy this film just for what it was, which was, as I said at the beginning, stupid but entertaining. Like, it was not going to be something that made logical sense. It was not going to be.
It just tries to be more, and that's the problem.
Like,
look, if you want to look at Chloe Grace Moretz's crotch for 40 minutes, yes, you're going to get that. Okay, guys. Hey, sorry, she's in a Sperry, and we have to look at that. That's what we have to look at for at least the first 40 minutes of the film. So if that's what you want, you get that. And if you guess you want dumb gremlin action, you're going to get that too. I don't know where the audience is on this, Paul. Like, it's not one way or the other. It tries to do too much in 83 minutes, I think. I think if she dialed back on some of this stuff, it would have been a fun B-movie fucking Amazon release.
Well, I mean, like I said, I genuinely enjoyed it, and it's something that, you know, obviously for this here, like, I'm attempting to put my you know, critical lenses on it, and critically, I can fully admit that there are many parts of it that, you know, are either difficult or don't necessarily add up or things like that. And especially if you're going into it trying to make logical sense of it, you're not going to manage it. But just in terms of a film that's supposed to be entertainment, I personally got that out of the film, even if the first 30 minutes I had to sort of maybe ignore the dialogue a little bit.
Yeah, but that's critical, though. That's like the first 30, 40 minutes of the movie. You can't throw that out for the back end of this, and that stuff has really bananas.
No? Well, and that's the thing. Like when I say I was kind of ignoring some of the dialogue. Like, I myself am partially deaf, so actually sort of tuning out people talking is not difficult for me. And B, one thing, I don't know if you did it when you were watching it, but if you actually focus on Chloe Grace Moretz's face as they talk, and you're just looking at her reaction to every single sentence,
or her crotch. Yeah. Because that's 30 minutes of the movie is her just in that close-up shot. Yeah, I wish. Well, they should have just the whole movie like that. The film just, it starts out big, gets very small, and then tries to get big again, and then gets, action hero-y at the end of it. All in 83 minutes. So I guess there's an accomplishment on that level from the director and the writers. So I guess I can't really fault it on that. I guess if you're looking for everything, you're gonna get it. But I
was gonna say it's very odd because it's a film that is 83 minutes and it's both slow paced and very fast paced at the same time.
Brutal. It's brutal. The first, you're right. Yeah, it starts out very slow and then it ramps up to a stupid ending. None of it makes sense at all. Kudos for Grace for doing it. I guess we have to say to her. I think she's a better actress than people are giving her material for.
Oh, definitely.
I wish the hell they would give her some better work to do. Because I do like her. I've always liked her, and I just wish she would get some better stuff.
Yeah, hell, if nothing else for people.
And she's in Tom and Jerry, isn't she? Fucking in Tom and Jerry on HBO Max. Yeah, I think she's in that. So that's what she's getting, guys. She went from this bullshit, from a gremlin to fucking animated cats and mice. Like, give this woman something else to do. Like, I don't understand. She's a credible actress. I don't understand why she keeps taking these dumbass jobs that, that just go by the wayside. Nobody sees this shit. I guess a lot of people saw Tom and Jerry. I did not. I've not watched it on HBO Max, but it's there, guys.
Yeah, and also, one thing I did not realize, despite the fact that, having a young daughter, I've seen this several times, she's the voice of Wednesday Addams in the Addams Family
the animated one? Oh, all right. Well, there you go. There's one positive point there, I guess. If you got a kid, you check that shit out. They're doing a live action thing, right? With Tim Burton, I believe.
They're doing a live action TV show. Yeah.
Yeah, Tim Burton. She's not in it, but they are doing one.
Yeah, no, she would have been an interesting choice for a live action.
Again,
Wednesday.
She would have been. Well, it's hard to beat Christina Ricci on that one, but yes, she would have been an interesting choice.
Yeah, I feel like they should just get Christina Ricci back.
She's not that old, right? I think she could pull it off. I think she could throw in some makeup, but Chloe Grace is getting a little old for certain roles. But that's interesting. She was in. I didn't realize she was in the animated. God bless her. Like I said, I do like her, folks. If you do seek her out, but I think here she's all over the map, and I have to really cite the director and the writer on this one. But all right, Paul, thought it was already be really fun. I think a better one is Overlord, right? I think that's a better B movie with John Boyega.
I
think that's a better way to go.
That's something.
If you want a World War II film with monsters and shit, that might be a better one than this bullshit. But all right.
Yeah, I've had that on my list for a while, and it's actually in my my Amazon Prime queue. I just haven't hit that yet because I'm trying to get through Mr. Robot. Actually.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, let me know when you see that one. That might be flushable. But a lot of people like that one. It didn't get rave reviews, but it's got a pretty good audience on that one. That's fun B movie type stuff. So it's all along the same line. I mean, that might be a good double feature with this one, honestly. If you want like two 1940s World War II films that have monsters and supernatural elements, this might be your jam, guys.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna throw it out of the park, but just be ready for a lot of B2 shit in the first half, and then the back half of some just weird action hero-y shit.
Yeah.
But that's your jam.
I will say that I think based on what you're saying and like some of the things I've seen online, like I think this film is going to go the same way as, say, The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, which is that like there's going to be a core group of people that just really enjoy it for what it is, and then everyone else who's actually critically looking at it is going to go, well, no, it's terrible. Like,
all right, well, I would hope so. They're two wildly different films, but
oh, absolutely, and
I think League's the better film. By the way, if you have to pick the two of them,
oh,
but
I mean,
that holds up a lot better than I think this will. But I understand what you're saying, that it might develop a cult following, and it might. I don't know. Some people really like this film. That I've seen different stuff online, but I think there's just too much going on here to really think it one way or the other. I just wish it was less Me Too shit and more just B-movie fun stuff, and I think that would have been okay. But you got that coming up, guys, with Kong versus Godzilla, so. Just hang in there for a couple weeks, guys. CGI creatures beating the shit out of each other for 2.5 hours, and you'll be all right. Don't worry about the gremlin here, which looks terrible. Yeah, and I was actually thinking about that. So you got Kong versus Godzilla, or like whatever the subtitle for that damn thing is, and for a fact that the entire film is not going to actually have them fighting each other. Like, they're actually going to fight for 10 minutes? No, I think it is though. I think there's a lot of Kong versus Godzilla in that one. They said that one sequence is 20 minutes, I guess, on the aircraft carrier. No. I think Paul, you're getting your money's worth on HBO Max, folks. It's on 31st on HBO Max. If you want to see a 100-foot Kong beat up a 100-foot Godzilla, this may be your film, and I think we may or may not have an episode coming up dealing with that shit. Not that shit, but the shit before that shit. Man, I'm so sick of seeing CGI creatures beating the crap out of each other. But Paul, I think you might get more than 10 minutes out of that one.
Okay, well that's good.
You might be okay. You got your HBO Max. You might want to tune in on that one because. I think they're going to be beaten. I think that's the whole film, basically, is them just going at. One's going to die. Well, anybody give a shit? No, it's all CGI creatures. But if you watch the original film, it was a stalemate. Am I correct?
I think
so. They both survived.
Yeah,
both survived.
Yeah, obviously back then they didn't want to kill off probably the
two.
And
they shouldn't do it here. Right, exactly. They shouldn't do it here. So hopefully it'll be a stalemate again. And you can't kill off one or the other. What the hell's wrong with you people? But anyway, that'll be coming up if you don't have your fill of CGI creatures getting the shit beat out of them after this movie. 31st, guys.
Yeah, and if you want to get your Jones in before then, just go back and watch Pacific Rim, because I mean, come on.
No, go back and watch the other Godzilla movies, right? We may or may not have flushed one of them. But there's a lot of. Yeah, and that's a whole separate thing. But here, you have a live actor speeding up a CGI creature. That's kind of more fun. At least one of them is real. I don't know, but we can argue that. But
now, last question then,
yes.
before we just wrap everything up. So, who did that better then? So, Chloe Grace Moretz beating up the Gremlin in this, or Sean Austin beating up Smeagol / Gollum in Lord of the Rings?
Do you really have to even answer? Do I have to answer that question? If you're not seeing Lord of the Rings and the trilogy, come on.
I wasn't expecting an actual answer to that. We all know the answer.
And you're not getting one. Yeah, we all know the answer to that one. Yeah. I give credit for Chloe Grace Moretz for doing 100. She's 100% in this film. I guess I should say. I will cite that. I mean, but then again, we've already talked about she's a very good actress, and she deserves better work than this crap. But she did really beat up that fucking CGI. That poor guy in a green suit, that poor bastard stunt actor that had to fucking take that hit in that, and then be replaced by this CGI bat creature, which is it's a dumb sequence at the end of this film. No, go watch Lord of the Rings again, for Christ's sake, or Batman versus Superman, or fucking Justice League coming up, right? I don't know if this is going to be out when that comes up, but there's plenty of other CGI things you can be watching than this film, but it's a half a B movie. I wish it was a whole B movie. I wish it was more low budget. I wish it was puppets. And I wish it was less Me Too. And I think you would have had a better film. But then again, Paul, where are you going with this? I mean, you're getting into... Well, if you do that, you're taking away from the other Gremlins films like Gremlins 1 and 2 and the 2 Twilight Zone episodes, which I think arguably did all of this better. Like, they're just better, fun films than this thing. And this gremlin doesn't even look like a gremlin. It looks like a stupid bat. And like something out of the King Kong, right? Peter Jackson's King Kong movie. Like it's something that wandered over from that production from Skull Island. I think that's where they landed, Paul. I think that end sequence, they landed on Skull Island, and they're going to meet up with Jack Black and fucking and Naomi Watts for the sequel to that. So there's some weirdness going on there. It doesn't really gel, but just go watch those other Gremlin stuff, which is way more fun.
Yeah, and like I said in the thing, I think if they'd really only had the Gremlin like in the last, like actually properly on screen in the last maybe 10 minutes,
yes,
then I think it would have been better overall.
I agree.
And this is definitely one of those films that, as I said, I enjoyed, but I will very, very much pick and choose who I recommend this film to, because you've got to know your audience. You've got to know like what they would be comfortable with, and if they would be able to kind of really suspend their disbelief for it.
Well, if they liked Overlord, I think they might like this one.
Yeah.
I think, it's a good double feature. I guess, this is a tough call, Paul. It's a really tough call of what the audience is and who you recommend to. I'm not going to recommend this to anybody because I think it's, I think she shot her wad with the Me Too shit. I think that really threw everybody out of the film and nothing else. She can't recoup it. And then you have there's no puppetry. I personally like that. It would have been nice to see a couple puppets here, but we got none of that. So, yeah. Yeah, there you go.
Well, and after that incredibly high energy ending,
that's my 2 thumbs down on this bullshit. Go watch Godzilla vs. King Kong coming up 31st.
All right. Well, may as well finish it there. So I'll kick it on over to you then. So first and foremost, if people did want to find you and the things that you do online, if they probably don't want to, but
they're not going to want to. But if you do, guys, it's not going to be around for long. We do a show called Soil Restaurant Cinema, but after many years since 2013, we're going to be retiring that show. But if you already subscribed to the show, do not fret. Because on the same feed, we're rebranding the show. So we're going to be doing the same bullshit, but in a very new context. I'm not going to tell you what that is. You're going to have a trailer coming up for that. If you subscribe to us, it's going to be awesome. So we're tired. We're getting out of the restroom, and we're going to be something cooler, hopefully cooler, but doing the same thing of ripping on really bad films. So don't worry about that. Right now, the signalsoffury.com is the website, and you can just type in Soil Restaurant Cinema in your podcast app of choice. Whether Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Google Podcasts, wherever you subscribe to podcasts, type in Soil Wrestling Center. You can follow us there. Signals of Fury at Signals of Fury on Twitter, and of course on Facebook you can file Soil Wrestling Cinema for now, and then we'll give you all the information on our rebrand, which Paul's going to be involved in. He's going to be hanging out with us on future episodes and stuff like that. So that's where we are at. There you go.
Yeah, and I will, once that promo is out, I'm going to put it at the end of whatever episode will be next recorded, so that you guys can hear that if you're not already connected to that feed, and then hopefully that will remind you to go and subscribe to that, because definitely go back and check out the back catalogue of Soil Wrestling Cinema, because I have been on it a lot. So.
Yeah, Paul's been on it a lot, and that's why he's staying with us for the rebrand. We should mention that. Also, folks, when the rebrand happens, those back episodes are going to start disappearing. We're going to be getting rid of some of the more questionable ones for copyright infringement and just blatant racism. Like there's shit that's gonna disappear. So if you have to get caught up on Soil Wrestling Cinema back episodes, now is the time. Because I guarantee you that's going to, as we push forward into the future with Mr. Hawkins here, and we have some other people coming on our show. It's going to be amazing. So there you go. Sure. Get it now while you can.
Yeah, there you go. And as I said at the beginning, obviously Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, just search BlokeBusters. I mean, you're listening to this, so you know the name, so you should probably be able to find it. We also have a Discord at the moment where anyone can come in and suggest for films if they want to, possibly influence what's going to be coming up next. And if you want to come on as a guest, if you join that and let me know, I will get you in the guest role, and you can, figure out times and stuff for us there. So yeah, definitely come check that out. If you go to the BlokeBusters Twitter, then we have a link on there that you can click on. It'll bring you straight to the Discord. And I'll put it in the show notes as well, so you guys can click on it if you want to. And let's see, is there anything else? I think that's it. I believe we've covered everything that we want to for this. And also, speaking of that rebranding, you might want to subscribe to that because you might hear something somewhat similar to to what we talked about on there. You know, who knows?
You might.
Yes. Thank you for coming on and talking about this, Donna.
My pleasure.
Obviously, it was a huge chore for you, but we seem to have got some content out of it. But yes, hopefully you guys had fun listening to it, and I'll see you next time. Bye.
In case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
Hang on a minute, lads. I've got a great idea.
Louis, I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.